from Renaissance-style chateaux, grand country estates, architectural glass masterpieces.
These are the remarkable homes
Simply breathtaking.
and magnificent landmarks
One day, my son, all this will be yours.
at the very heart of Britain's spectacular history.
I have never seen one like this.
Join me
I need to get there with all speed. Onwards, driver.
and a host of celebrities
Oh, crikey.
with a passion for the past
Kaboom! Wish me luck.
as we travel the length and breadth of the nation,
It is between the walls.
and with unparalleled behind-the-scenes access.
From the highest heights
Now I'm through my blind panic.
to the deepest depths.
We'll uncover the secrets
Oh, my goodness.
still hidden within these breathtaking buildings.
These are the places that nobody else gets to see.
And explore the riches
How spectacular.
and treasures of one of our most loved institutions.
This is an amazing story. Come on, I want to know the end. I want to know the end.
Welcome to the secrets of the National Trust. On the shores of the Strangford Lough in County Down, Northern Ireland, lies one of the National Trust's most intriguing houses.
Nobility, political leaders, and even royalty have all flocked here for the sheer beauty of the setting and the grandness of its mansion and its elegant hostess.
With soaring Ionic columns, sumptuous interiors, and a world-famous garden.
This is Mount Stewart.
It's been home to the Stewart family for almost 3 centuries. A potent political force, the Stewarts also held the lofty title Marquis of Londonderry. With their majestic mansion grown stuffy and dated, it was ripe for a makeover when the 7th Marquis, Charles Vane Tempest Stewart, moved here with his charismatic wife Edith in 1921.
And it's the alluring Marchioness, Lady Edith Londonderry, whose imagination, flair, and energy transformed Mount Stewart into what she described as the land of heart's delight.
By unlocking the secrets hidden behind closed doors,
So this
This is her private bedroom, and it has never been seen by the public before.
leafing through rarely read letters,
I think we're still writing at cross purposes. Oh, the Marchioness.
Yes.
getting the inside track on Edith's life from her very own granddaughter.
She never stopped. And the house, it was always full of people, full of 14 dogs, shrieking macaws.
And unravelling the mysteries of a secluded cemetery.
We don't usually let people in.
You're very kind.
I'll reveal the story of a woman who brought glamour, style, politics and parties to Mount Stewart.
Don't. I'm getting ideas above my station.
Also, Nina Wadia exposes explosive revelations in the Londonderry's archive.
She's one of a very small number of aristocratic suffragists. Her mother-in-law was disgusted and calls her daughter-in-law a young hound running riot.
Oh, my.
She didn't approve at all.
Alison Hammond is at a notorious stately home with a private guest list to rival that of Lady Edith.
Hold on a minute. Chaplain.
Charlie Chaplin stayed here.
Alison stayed here.
And things hot up for Oz Clarke as he digs through the secrets of Mount Stewart's potting shed.
Let's lift this off here now. Sorry about the smoke in the house.
Walking up to Mount Stewart through these beautiful gardens, you immediately sense you're embarking on something rather special.
That's because after 3 years of restoration, the National Trust has returned the estate to its best, and you feel as though you're stepping back in time.
But the magnificence of the formal gardens does make one wonder how the interior of this striking neoclassical mansion could possibly compete.
Well, the wow factor as you enter the central hall is enough to lay those worries to rest.
This is astonishing. It could have been made yesterday. Absolutely beautiful.
Yes, absolutely fantastic, isn't it? So glamorous.
The National Trust's Neil Watt has offered to show me the secrets lying hidden here.
We've just completed our £8 million restoration on this house.
This was a house in danger then, presumably?
It was. I mean, in fact, look at the balcony above you. The balcony, I'm told, was about to fall down. And apparently, staff and family members used to sort of grip the wall and sort of go around the side, lest it should fall over. There were pieces of the plaster falling down. In fact, whenever our past chatelaine of the house, Lady Mary, lived here, she was in bed and her bedroom sort of cornice fell from the ceiling. So this was the stuff that even I didn't see. But yes, the house was falling down.
The Trust took over the mansion in 1977, but by the early 2000s, it was in need of more than a little TLC. Ready-made inspiration came from the vivacious Lady Edith Londonderry, who'd left her unique imprint on Mount Stewart almost 100 years earlier.
Whenever Mount Stewart is talked about, the one name which is mentioned is Lady Edith Londonderry. Tell me about her.
When she arrived here in 1921, there was only one loo, one bath put in for the king, and the house was pretty much...
That's such a name drop. One bath, put in for the king.
Did I drop something? But she came here and she thought that Mount Stewart was the darkest, dampest house she had ever seen in her life. However, her opinion changed. She saw the beautiful climate, she saw Strangford Lough, and she sort of fell in love.
How did Edith change the house?
Well, she changed it in probably every conceivable way other than architecturally. It really wasn't her style. You can imagine the picture, antimacassars, parlour plants, all a bit chintzy and all a bit...
Heavy Victorian?
Heavy Victorian. She liked the sort of new kind of glamorous damasks and bright colours and layers and...
She brought style to Mount Stewart.
Exactly, she brought style to Mount Stewart. You've got it in one.
Did the place then become a magnet for the sort of fashionable? Mount Stewart was a place to go to?
Yes, and I can do some name dropping for you again if you would like. Yeah, go on, will I? Well, King Alfonso of Spain, Prince Ronnie of Monaco, Ramsay MacDonald, the royal family.
That'll do. That'll do.
Is that enough?
They didn't drop them, they clanged.
For Lady Edith, the life of an aristocratic wife living in her country pile was never going to be enough. Famously charismatic, she was known for her ability to charm. Her bedroom suite, decked out as a swanky boudoir, fizzes with her personality. Completely restored to its former glory, it now looks exactly as it did when she was alive. It's not open to the public yet, but Neil's invited me for an exclusive preview.
Oh, I do like an imposing bedroom.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
So this is Lady Edith's bedroom?
This is her private bedroom, and it has never been seen by the public before. And the doors out onto the staircase remained locked to the public, and they still do. And so this really is a little secret, a little nook hidden away.
What sort of state was it in?
The room was in a very poor state. The worst factor was the light damage in the room. Believe it or not, this bed had been bleached white.
White? And it was crimson originally?
Crimson originally.
Whew. It's a wonderfully extravagant renovation and another pricey one, I guess.
It was, and actually, we're very lucky that our current family member to live here, Lady Rose Lawrenson, her husband, Peter, had a very generous family, and they donated 500,000 American dollars to Mount Stewart, to the National Trust, so that we could restore these suite of rooms, restore Edith's most private space.
But it's wonderful. The $500,000 bedroom suite.
Absolutely, yeah.
Lady Edith had flamboyant taste for the time, combining unusual colours and styles. But although unconventionally creative, she was also dependably practical.
Now, you said when she came to the house there was only one loo.
Yes.
I mean, did she pay attention to that kind of thing as well?
She did. So if you're impressed with this bedroom, can I show you the bathroom? Because Edith loved her bathrooms.
Wow. How imposing is that? This is the bathroom, here's the bath.
It's not a bath, it's a boat. It's
in
huge.
full sail, yeah.
Absolutely.
It is an amazing room. Gilded mirror, pictures, all kinds of furniture, beautiful walnut linen press. It's not in any way utilitarian, is it?
It's not, and that certainly was not Edith.
Although determined to give Mount Stewart a modern makeover, Edith had a delicately Victorian approach to the more functional parts of her bathroom.
But I can't see a loo.
Yes, well, she did have a wonderful way of upcycling antique furniture. She didn't want to be offended by the sight of a lavatory in the room. No. So if you look hard enough, you can probably spot it.
Oh, I can see a pipe.
Yes, keep going.
Don't tell me this
Yes.
chest.
Oh, go for it.
Get a
Go
chest
on.
of drawers. Oh, look.
Isn't it fabulous? Isn't it wonderful?
That's clever.
Well, it certainly puts a whole new slant on lifting the lid.
All of the loos have a sort of personality of their own. Everything is just so beautifully and uniquely done.
So there she is, lying in the bath. I mean, I doubt that she'd reached for her own towel. There would have been a maid there
Yes.
to have handed her the towel.
And in fact, that's why we've got 2 chairs in this room. The wicker chair was to let her dry off in her robe. This chair was where she moved to have her stockings put on.
Don't. I'm getting ideas above my station. But every single room has a glorious view of the garden. With lovely soft Irish weather at the moment, Helen.
Lovely, lovely dark Irish weather, but I guess that's why it's so important to have a glamorous interior here at Mount Stewart, because sometimes it's not always so bright outside.
Oh, we're coming through a bookcase.
We are.
We are.
Through the secret door. The secret door into her inner sanctum. You're very much in her private space, and only her closest friends and family would have come in here.
And this then totally reflects her taste.
It does. Completely eclectic, diverse, random. Here's a picture of the room in her day.
Oh, that's identical.
It is.
You're in her presence in a way, aren't you, really?
You are. You really feel that you're with the woman herself.
What did Lady Edith use this room for?
Well, this was her sitting room and her study. This was where she would come and be at one with her thoughts. I remember whenever I was a little boy coming here with my parents, and back then I remember seeing dog claws scraped on the paint out through the windows. She would have the windows up.
And dogs coming in and
dogs
out.
jumping in and out. And of course over there she had steps just through that window, so she could throw the window up and just go out in her garden.
There are lots of portraits in here, but particularly portraits of a young girl. I mean, 3 there, another one on the end.
Yes, and of course they're all the same young lady.
And this is?
This is Lady Mary, her youngest child. And Lady Mary was born here in 1921. I mean, bear in mind, Mary was born 20 years after the birth of her first child.
Gosh.
So she was maybe a sort of happy accident, I don't know. And she became a sort of a symbol of rebirth, a symbol of a new opportunity. And I think Mary was probably the reason why Edith fell in love with this house so much. You know,
It became a family home.
It did become a family home.
Baby Mary may have rooted the Marchioness to Mount Stewart, but Lady Edith wasn't your average mother. Far from having eyes only for the newborn, Edith was furiously firing off letters to all and sundry, and her private address book was anything but ordinary.
Who would she write to?
Oh gosh, it would be easier to answer who didn't she write to. We have correspondence from kings, queens, most of the royal family, literary giants. She was the patroness to musicians.
Yeah.
So really everyone, and lovely intimate family correspondence as well.
A collection of Lady Edith's rarely seen letters is kept in the family archives, and I'm getting to look at a few rare examples.
I love reading letters, with permission, of course.
Yes, of course. Well, you've got our whole permission today. They give an intimate and very personal glimpse into her life.
Oh, this is... She's obviously writing to a supplier or a craftsman. Yes. Dear sir, I think we're still writing at cross purposes.
Oh, yes.
Marchioness.
Ooh, yes.
When I referred to having the door made in Ireland, I was talking purely of the tool shed, as I think it's not necessary to have this made as so ornate or important.
Yes.
Tool shed door.
She wasn't a lady to be trifled with, clearly. But it's family letters left virtually untouched for 100 years that are most revealing.
And then this one, which is to the Marquis of London. So
Yes.
this is to her husband.
To her husband, so very personal, yes.
My beloved dearest, it's perfectly divine here. Why do we ever live anywhere else?
I know.
Well, why would you?
Formidable as she was in her Mount Stewart days, Edith was probably at the peak of her influence in the few years before she moved here, at a time when Britain was in turmoil.
This is a woman who was a political mover and shaker.
Yes, and I think her idea of aristocracy was one of inherent duty
And responsibility.
and responsibility, and I think she took that work very, very seriously. I think this manifested itself during the First World War, because she formed her own army. Yes. She,
With a good intent.
With a good intent, not to storm Buckingham Palace, but to help with the war effort. And she called it her Women's Legion.
A powerful lady who used her power well.
Yes.
Lady Edith was more than a lively hostess with a taste for eclectic decor. She was also a woman who used her influence for the greater good. Patriotism inspired her to set up the Women's Legion in London in 1915, but she didn't stop there. Nina Wadia is in Belfast, where extraordinary archive material reveals that Edith didn't just champion the troops, she also took on a battle of her own, women's suffrage.
This is the Public Record Office of Northern Ireland. It holds irreplaceable photographs of Mount Stewart House, its gardens, and Edith Lady Londonderry's then rather unconventional life.
Hello, I'm Diane Urquhart.
Historian Dr. Diane Urquhart has written a book on the Marchioness of Londonderry, so has had privileged access to this extensive archive. There are almost 40,000 documents in the Londonderry collection, including photos, letters, pamphlets, and manuscripts. They shine a light on the secrets of Lady Edith in every aspect of her life: society hostess, political activist, and wartime leader.
Here she's wearing a Women's Legion uniform, which she heads up as its Commander-in-Chief.
Right.
It's uniformed, it's cross-class, it's non-denominational, it's non-political. And what it's aiming to do is to train women for a whole variety of jobs, which men did, and that would then allow men to sign up for active service. This was a hugely important organisation. So it starts off training women to be military cooks.
Did she put women on the front line at all?
Some women did serve in the front line, particularly as drivers.
Yes.
So some women were at the Western Front.
So she was a real pioneer.
Absolutely. And she saw this as a pioneer organisation. It really proved what women could do. They could do men's jobs, but in their own way.
That is incredible.
Since the early 1900s, Edith had been an active supporter of women's suffrage, even writing and speaking about it on public platforms.
Am I right in assuming that Lady Edith was a suffragette?
She was a suffragist, and the distinction comes that suffragettes are women who took to militant means, breaking the law to draw attention to the campaign, working to allow women not just to vote but also stand as parliamentary candidates.
Right.
As a suffragist, Edith shared the same goals as the suffragettes, but she believed in peaceful campaigning.
It's unusual to see an aristocratic woman of her position so actively involved in the suffrage movement. So her mother-in-law, Teresa, the 6th Marchioness, was disgusted and calls her daughter-in-law a young hound running riot.
Oh, my.
She didn't approve at all. It's hugely controversial. So for Edith to step up, she's one of a very small number of aristocratic suffragists.
Edith wrote about the importance of a vote for women, and some of her work has survived here in the Londonderry archive.
Did she write all these pamphlets?
She did. She wrote 2 suffrage pamphlets. The first was 1909, and here she is really presenting her stall about why women needed the vote.
Surely it is woman's right as much as man's to exercise her influence, whether in her political opinions or in ordinary life, in a direct and straightforward manner. That is, I mean, she seemed to be so ahead of her time.
She was.
All the campaigning finally paid off. Exactly 100 years ago in 1918, property-owning women over 30 got the vote, but the struggle continued.
It's quite common at the time for those who are working for the vote to say, well, look, it's not just for women of my class and in my position, but the people who need it most are working women. The vote will offer them some protection.
Political yet playful, Lady Edith threw weekly dinners in London during World War I. They were her way of lifting the spirits of her inner circle. The gathering eventually developed into an exclusive group for the movers and shakers of the day, known as the Ark Club.
We can see here a number of documents relating to the Ark. It's quirky, but it's hugely elite. Everyone had a special name.
The members of the Ark Club may have included Britain's most powerful figures, but it didn't stop Lady Edith giving them nicknames. Admiral Sir David Beatty, one of the most senior British naval officers of World War I, became David the Dolphin, and former Prime Minister Arthur Balfour was known as both Arthur the Albatross and Arthur the Archaeopteryx. There are sketches of her husband Charlie the Cheetah and others in the collection.
Lady Edith even put up concrete statues in her garden to celebrate the Ark Club and its A-list members.
This one's particularly interesting.
This is Winston Churchill at an early phase of his career, and he's named Winston the Warlock. You can see here, Nina, how she describes him.
A warlock, as all the world knows, is a wizard, and the Ark door of open sesame was always ajar to him. I love it.
Yeah, and people were fascinated by the Ark. Some people were quite critical of it, said it was too frivolous.
Yes.
But they tended not to be in the invite list.
Ah. Do you know, I certainly had not heard of Lady Edith. I think she needs to be celebrated a bit more.
Absolutely.
But Edith wasn't the only posh, politically minded woman of her day. In the early 20th century, American Nancy Astor made a stir in British high society. She, too, was a spirited hostess and campaigner and became the first female MP to take a seat in Parliament. Alison Hammond is at Cliveden House in Buckinghamshire, a place that still holds clues to the hidden life of this formidable lady.
Like Lady Edith at Mount Stewart, Nancy Astor was a powerful female figure. She passionately pursued politics and women's suffrage. Although Cliveden is an unusual hybrid of hotel and historical home, it still has remnants of her time here.
William Waldorf Astor was one of the richest Americans of the 19th century. He bought Cliveden House in 1893. 13 years later, his son Waldorf married Nancy, and William gave them Cliveden as a wedding present. Not a bad start to married life, but the new Mrs. Astor wasn't one to rest on her laurels. I'm meeting Cliveden's curator, Una Kennedy, to find out about the impressive Nancy.
Nancy Astor probably is one of the most famous women of her generation. She was elected to Parliament on the 23rd of November, 1919. So this was the first time that a woman had entered the House of Commons as a member. And it must have been quite frightening, I think, for Nancy. Entering the chamber with 600 men, she would have met quite a frosty reception. But I think the person who was probably most vocal about how he felt about the presence of Nancy was Winston Churchill.
Really?
And it probably surprised him that, you know, this American female could match him in terms of insult trading.
Oh, so she was feisty.
There's always that very famous one. Something had irritated her about Winston, and so Nancy said, Winston, if you were my husband, I'd poison your coffee. And of course, Winston then immediately came back and said, Nancy, if you were my wife, I'd drink it.
That is brilliant. When she wasn't having a Barney with Churchill, Nancy spent time campaigning for the rights of women, children and working people.
I hate all kinds of wars. That's absolutely true. But particularly I hate civil war, class war or sex war. But I like fighting. But I like fighting for justice.
Nancy got a bit of flack for seeming posh and out of touch, but she wasn't bothered. For her, being well-connected meant she could use her influence to change things for the better. And she wasn't shy about using her grand house to get her message across to her powerful pals.
This is the Great Hall, so this was a room where Nancy would receive her guests.
Natalie Livingston, the latest lady of the house, has written about Nancy's time here.
Nancy turned Cliveden into a political literary salon, which every single writer from George Bernard Shaw to Rudyard Kipling to J.M. Barrie would come and talk about ideas, and it became very much a hotbed for ideas and discussion and debate. She absolutely brought the houses of Westminster to Cliveden.
I want to know just how high-powered Nancy's chinwags were. So Natalie's shown me Cliveden's visitors' books that are not on show to the public.
It's absolutely incredible. When you look on this page, this is British royalty. So we have Elizabeth, who is now our Queen, and we have Princess Margaret. And on this page, we have the Kennedys, who stayed here. We have...
Hold on a minute. Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin, yes.
No.
Charlie Chaplin stayed here.
Really?
Yeah. Mahatma Gandhi stayed here.
Alison stayed here. meandering along the Thames has left me with some of the best views of the house, and it kind of makes me think about the guests approaching the house for the very first time and what they would have thought of Nancy. They probably would have thought, you know what, she's a classy bird, first of all, but also graceful, yet formidable. You can't help but admire her strength and determination when it came to women's rights.
Both Lady Astor and Mount Stewart's own Lady Edith were extraordinary women ahead of their time who were determined to make a difference. And while Edith's activism and creativity will never be forgotten, her most enduring legacy is bound to be Mount Stewart's world-famous garden, packed with an unexpected variety of exotic flowers.
Walking through these beautiful gardens, you immediately sense that you're embarking on something very special.
The secret is the extraordinary microclimate here on the Ards Peninsula. A narrow strip of land separating Strangford Lough from the Irish Sea, it's damp and mild, making it ideal for growing an array of weird and wonderful plants.
An autumn colour just starting.
Yeah, it's looking good.
Today, head gardener Neil Porteous keeps watch over 8 acres of formal garden, but it first took root back in Edith's day.
Was it all designed by Lady Edith? Is it her brainchild?
It is. All the sort of layout is hers. She was pregnant in 1921, had morning sickness, and this was her antidote to it, was to design this garden like a professional.
Wonderful. So where are we now? What's this part of the garden?
This is the Italian garden, and she loved sunsets and sunrises here as the water's reflected into the sky off Strangford Lough, and that's what the colour scheme is.
Wonderful.
And she loved the idea that no two colours in nature could clash. So she put it to the test here, where you've got colours just contrasted against each other. But really, we can follow what she actually had in mind, because she wrote it down in an article, so we can have a look at it.
Oh, right, lovely.
Mount Stewart has just made it into the list of top 10 gardens in the world. But as her rarely seen writings reveal, it may not have come as a massive surprise to green-fingered Edith.
Well, this is the RHS journal that Edith wrote in December 1935. And she talks about Mount Stewart. It's on the Ards Peninsula, County Down. It's situated on a narrow neck of land facing almost due south on the shores of Strangford Lough. It is, to all intents and purposes, as favourably situated climatically as if it were on an island. So, just lovely.
And that explains she was clearly aware of the kind of microclimate she'd got.
When it came to flowers, not much got past Lady Edith, but scrapbooks that have been hidden for decades show how far she was prepared to go to get her garden just right.
Mount Stewart Garden, 1937, so this is her notebook and saved clippings.
It's one of 8 that we've got.
Wonderful. So. Oh, and a letter from a legend. Yeah, Frank Kingdon Ward, one of the greatest plant collectors of all time.
Daredevil botanist Kingdon Ward spent almost 50 years gathering rare species in Asia, his adventures often sponsored by the Londonderries. On his travels, he fell off a cliff, was impaled on a bamboo spike, and even got lost in the wilds. But he survived the lot to bring back exotic plants to Britain and to Lady Edith.
Went out 26 times looking for her plants, and this one's from Assam, Toklai in 1949.
I'm enclosing some seed of a rhododendron unknown that we collected in East Manipur last winter. I suppose we shall come home this year, next year, sometime. We never know far in advance. He was out there all the time in Nepal, Burma, Himalaya, all that sort of area. This is a wonderful volume. How helpful is that to you in looking after the garden?
Well, this is just lists of plants that have been tried here, and also things that she was looking for. The things she loved are scented flowers.
So in the same way that in the house they're being true to her spirit, you can do the same in the garden in a way and keep bringing here plants that you know she would have wanted.
And not just that, you know, every year between 1,000, 1,500 new plants discovered worldwide. So what would she do if she was alive today?
She'd be going absolutely mad and planting everything she could get her hands on that she'd never seen before.
These days, a team of around a dozen gardeners and up to 80 volunteers are busy keeping Edith's legacy alive. And just as she would have wanted, they continue to expand the number of rare and exotic species grown here. It's a job that throws up plenty of challenges. Writer and presenter Oz Clarke's got a backstage pass to discover the top-secret tricks of the Mount Stewart potting shed.
It would be fair to say that the gardens of Mount Stewart are not normal. It's as though nature has just thrown everything together without any human intervention.
But nothing could be further from the truth. Keeping the gardens looking this good takes hard graft and real skill. The team here is managing to retain an astounding number of exotic plant species that face extinction in their native habitats, and they do it by carefully creating new plants from seeds or cuttings.
Hi, I'm Oz. Hello.
Hello. Alan, lovely to meet you.
So it's you who's been making all this smell?
Yeah. We're simulating a forest fire in South Africa. How about that, eh?
That's exactly what I thought.
Gardener Alan Ryder is a man who knows the secrets of growing flowers from foreign lands. Today, he's cultivating the seeds of South Africa's national bloom, Protea.
So there's your Protea seeds. In the wild, it will not grow unless there has been a brush fire. That's the whole secret.
I see. The plant needs the fire to break open.
To break open
its
that
seeds.
dormancy.
Got it.
So basically, I'll just put those seed in on top of the tin, spread it out a little bit, just like that. Put the lid on. We've bark in there, which smoulders. The smoke comes up into this tin here, and we leave that for about 5 minutes.
Protea is just one of about 4,000 plant species at Mount Stewart. Like botanists in days gone by, the team travels all over the world collecting new plants. Right now, species from around 50 countries are thriving here.
Let's lift this off here now. Yeah, just let the smoke clear a little bit, and as you can see, you see the way it's all opened out? Sorry about the smoke in the eyes. Almost like little hedgehogs now.
And that's the germinating seed?
Yes, absolutely. So that's now ready to sow.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Having mimicked the native conditions needed to germinate the seeds, Alan then plants them in specially prepared sandy soil with added grit, designed to simulate the South African earth in which Protea grows.
So did Edith's gardeners go through this whole process all the time?
Absolutely. All of these processes are reinventions of what would have happened 80, 100 years ago.
They must have been at it 24 hours a day.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, let's go. Yeah. OK.
Ah, much warmer.
Yeah, it's nice and warm in here, isn't it? Yeah, lovely.
The Proteas will spend about a year in the Mount Stewart propagating unit before being planted outside. In the unit, temperature, light and moisture are kept constant, giving plants the very best chance of survival.
So we put all this effort into just a single little pot.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the enormous expanse of this garden, if you're going to do it like Lady Londonderry did it, that's an amazing commitment of man-hours and
Absolutely. It's a huge investment in time. You cannot just open a catalogue and say, I'll have one of those, please, because we're dealing with such a rare collection of plants.
Well, I have to say, Lady Londonderry would be delighted.
Well, I hope she would approve, yeah, absolutely.
But the story of Mount Stewart didn't end with Edith Londonderry. Her granddaughter, Lady Rose Lauritsen, grew up here with her sister and still lives in a private wing of the house. And she's asked me over for a chat about the old days when Mount Stewart was in its roaring pomp.
What a place to grow up.
Yeah, I feel very lucky. It was always full of people, full of 14 dogs in the house, shrieking macaws. And my grandmother had a tiny little miniature parrot that flew loose in her sitting room and used to sort of perch on the chandelier, which early the next morning, the maids had to get up on a ladder and do a little bit of cleaning. In the drawing room, there was always music. We had a great, great family friend who played the piano. We had to sing or dance. So it was chaotic, full of people and life and alive and light and flowers and plants and... No, it was the most amazing, happy, happy house.
She loved being
Oh,
here.
yes. I mean, I was actually born in London in a blitz, but I came over with a nanny a week later and then grew up here, really brought up by my grandmother as well as my mother, but probably more by my grandmother. and she was a huge influence.
What sort of personality?
Well, she was the most alive person I've ever met, and the energy, you know, it really makes me feel rather tired thinking about her energy. She never stopped, because she was doing all her good works, doing her garden. She did work like the head gardener, you know, she was pruning, digging, planting. Then she wrote 3 or 4 books. She never stopped. She had genuine old-fashioned charm. She could charm anyone, and that's how she got what she wanted.
There are lots of pictures of your mother, Lady Mary, around the house. A bit of a late arrival, your mother.
Yes, no, total surprise. My grandmother, she just said, I feel immensely seedy. Went to the doctor and he said, you're having a baby. So my mother appeared, and she was really the favourite, absolutely. Both my grandparents, they absolutely adored her.
Lady Rose has been a real help to the National Trust during their restoration of Mount Stewart. She's revealed private details about the house that no other living person could know, and that means that everyone can enjoy the estate exactly as it was in Edith's day.
It very much speaks of your grandmother. Her personality shines through
Yes,
every
it does,
wall.
yes. Everything I've done, I've tried to redo as though it was her taste. So I feel I've saved it in a way from something horrible.
If somebody said to you, what's so special about Mount Stewart, how would you sum it up?
I think it's the atmosphere. The combination of Strangford Lough, which is my favourite, the garden, which I simply love with a passion, and the house is just home.
Mount Stewart's house and gardens were Lady Edith's crowning achievement, and after almost 4 happy decades, she died here in April 1959. She was laid to rest beside her husband Charles in the family burial ground. Tucked away out of sight, it's never been open to the public, but the National Trust's Neil Porteous has agreed to show me this most private of places.
That was a fair climb.
Yeah. Well, this is Tirnanog, the land of the ever young, the family burial ground. So we don't usually let people in, but we'll let you in.
You're very kind. Gosh, it's much bigger than it looks from outside.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
So why land of the forever young?
Well, in Irish and Scottish mythology, when you die, your soul is taken by the white stag up to Tirnanog, the land of the ever young.
A statue of the mythical white stag stands watch over the cemetery, along with sculptures of the saints of County Down. They give a hint of just how much Lady Edith loved this corner of Ireland.
So these are the sarcophagi. So that's Edith and this is Charles. What's nice is it shows something about their personalities. Look, you've got the garden with the bay trees, their dogs, their books, the macaw Edward, and roses, scented flowers.
Is this the traditional family burial ground?
Yes, Charlie was the first, and then it's just been grandchildren and brothers, sisters. They've all gone in.
They're all in here. Yeah. It's a wonderfully spiritual place. And in that letter, I remember I read in the house, it said, who would want to live anywhere else? And it's rather lovely to think that she never has. Mount Stewart in Northern Ireland is a magical place, brought to life by its otherworldly setting, its microclimate, and by the charismatic Lady Edith, 7th Marchioness of Londonderry.
She turned the house into a stylish mansion and made the gardens world-class. It was the place to see and be seen, and there's no doubt she absolutely loved it.
And now, thanks to the restoration, not only can we enjoy the grand house and garden as it was then, but we can also see it continue to evolve in the true spirit of Edith, Lady Londonderry.